Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, April 25th, 2019.
I'm Michael Agello from an undisclosed construction site.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Are you at the Islanders' new arena? Is that where you are today?
That would be the Videotron Center in Quebec City.
Right. Oh. I'm excellent. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. That was a bad dig by Mike, and this is the podcast that you watch every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings, goings in the hockey world. I'm going to see Avengers in 2.5 hours. I'm kind of psyched about that.
Yeah, I'm going to see it soon too. It's not. We should tell people they don't always see it at this hour, but they'll see it all the time.
Yeah, Everybody dies.
At some point, you'll see it. Well, everybody always dies, Mike. That's how it works. But you'll see it. You'll see the show at some point. We got to get right down to it because, oh man, oh my, again, whoever had the Hurricanes, Islanders, and Blue Jackets being the last three teams alive in the Metro Division?
Me.
Yeah, right. At the beginning of the year, whoever had the Islanders, Hurricanes, and Blue Jackets being the three teams that would be just incredible. I mean, really, that's an amazing thing in and of itself.
Anybody who's giving themselves credit, I saw a lot of it today. Anybody who's giving themselves credit for picking these right, you got lucky. There's a lot of weird things happening here.
Yeah, there's all you can do is throw theories out. Like when I threw it. Yeah. Hockey's a weird, wacko sport. It's a momentum sport. It's all about crazy twists and turns. I mean, we can sit here and say, this team got killed, but at the end of the day, a couple bounces and that team wins the game. It's ridiculous.
Well, I was watching the game. I went to cover the Marlies playoff game against Rochester last night.
Yep.
And as I was coming back, I was taking the train and was able to watch most of the first overtime. And I have to say, I have never seen a goaltender get knocked down and knocked for a loop more than Peter Mrazek in my life. I believe it was twice in overtime, and probably more during the game, where he put himself in between the puck and a Caps forward who was going near the crease and gets knocked over. And, if it was a regular season game, I think he probably would have been called for interference because he was trying. But, they weren't calling anything except for a puck over the glass. And I'm like, this guy's going to get concussed the way he's like, guys are running him over.
He was crazy. He was crazy over positioning himself. He was crazy out of position at times. End of the day, they won. But I'll tell you, it looked bad for Carolina early when I texted you guys. But then something happened. Even after the 3-1, when it got close to being tied and I saw Justin Williams just laughing on the bench, I was then worried about the Capitals because I was like, if they're this loose when the game is this tight, boy, I don't know. This is a bad sign for the Capitals. And you know what? I think Carolina just outlasted them. I'm not going to call this game like a masterpiece because it really wasn't.
No. Okay. Carolina was the younger of the two teams, and it showed in the overtime and in double overtime because they dominated the play except for that penalty, the 2-minute the minor for puck over the glass. But talk about another potential ridiculous call. What about the puck over the glass that wasn't called?
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God! And they scrummed for like a minute and a half. And then decided, again, the wrong play, the wrong decision.
There's too many calls already. There's just way too many calls for us to all be comfortable with. And I saw a rumor that a couple of the refs won't be on the next round's coach.
That's true.
But whatever. I mean, that doesn't help anybody this round.
And that does happen all the time. I mean, that's what the NHL does.
They're going to run out of refs for the Stanley Cup if they keep doing that.
Yeah, but they always have. They're eliminated. That's how it goes.
I know.
Refs are eliminated.
They'll bring back Wally Harris, Russ.
Listen, again, people may not know this. I'm going to give my theory on refereeing again. I don't learn all their names. I don't want to know their names. I don't want games to be decided by them. Say hi to the construction guy, Mike. He just made it. And I don't want games to be decided by him. And I don't boo referees, and I never did. I just don't, and I don't like to write about them. I don't.
Well, talk about out of position because I was watching the game, on my computer during the Marlies game, one eye on one game, one eye on the other, and it was 3-1 Caps, and Teravainen scores late in the second period to make it 3-2. If you see the tying goal, I think it was Jordan Stahl that scored it, the tying goal. Braden Holtby was probably 3 feet out of position. He had no angle. He left the entire far side of the goal wide open, and there's no explanation for it. Braden Holtby struggled last year until the playoffs, and he didn't have a great year this year, but his lackluster play cost him at a key point in that game.
Yeah, I mean, with Braden Holtby, he is such a competitor that you get the sense that he, as a goalie, felt like his team wasn't working hard enough. So he kind of shifts into his gear of like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can.
I agree with you. He was playing at a different level than his team.
He was, and he was trying to either trying to lift his team up, but as a goalie, you can't do that. It's just you can't. You're gonna get caught out of position. This is the Pekka-Rinne disease. Pekka-Rinne does that too. It's just like the same kind of thing, and Holtby got caught up in it, I think, because he's such a. There was obviously, I mean, when the Capitals only get 4 shots in the first overtime, and 6 shots through both of the overtimes, I mean that's insane. In a Game 7 at home,
it's insane.
How does that happen? Game 7 at home, Stanley Cup champions against not like the most crazy defense on the planet in Carolina. They're good, but they're not. This isn't the best defensive team ever.
Well, how about, and I'm just going back to a series that's over with, but how about in Game 6 on Easter Sunday in Toronto with the Leafs leading 1-0. They take the lead, and from that point until the end of the second period, they were outshot. I believe it was 20-2.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but I think Washington
Game 7. This is the Stanley Cup champion. This is like, and it really did. Honestly, look. Like we talk about all the time, you're rolling 4 lines, the benefit of rolling 4 lines. This is the first time I really felt as if a team was just spent. Like the Capitals were exhausted. They've been chasing the Canes around the ice. They've been trying to stay with them because the Canes are a fast team and the Caps they have fast players, but not the entire team, and they looked just exhausted, tired. I mean, they could not get it going again. And I mean, and the Canes were saying they were tired too at the end of the first overtime, but it's what
they weren't as tired. Their legs were better.
They had way better legs, and and Brind'Amour had them looser. And I also think the stress plays into exhaustion. Anybody who's ever been in stressed out situations know that the more stressed out you are, the more tired you are. It's just the way it goes. And and the stress now was starting to mount on the Caps, like we talked about yesterday. The remembering of some Game 7s where they've been in this situation before and they haven't come through. Started to like, raise his head. And what was the deal with Ovechkin's just passing all the time? Like, I mean, he made a great pass to Wilson on the 1 goal, no question.
I think he was trying to be the ultimate team player, and he shouldn't have been.
The one time he did shoot, he almost took Mrazek's head off, and it was I think it was in the second overtime where he wound up for maybe 20 feet and he hit Mrazek like an upper chest and as he fell down, his mask fell off, and that was the only reason they called the play. So it was what
was weird about that shot was, I mean, it's a cannon, and you can never argue with Ovechkin taking a slap shot from that close. I mean, it's but he had way more time than that on that shot, and he could have taken the puck. He could have made a move. He could have gotten Mrazek going one direction a little bit, and then and taken a wrist shot. He did not have to one-time that puck. There was no reason for him to one-time that puck. That was almost like we don't have any shots, so I'm going to take a shot, any shot I get, basically.
But he did get all of it, and he put it in the middle of his chest. But
he put it in the middle of his neck guard is what he did. That's like that. Any goalie who doesn't wear a neck guard, watch that shot right there. You should wear a neck guard all the time. But yeah, so here we are, the beginning of the second round, and there's a couple. I was listening to one of my favorite guys on XM, who is Jim Boomer Gordon, one of the nicest guys out there.
Yeah.
I sat with Boomer during the World Cup of Hockey for a bunch of games. We go way back to XM's early days when I was there helping them with the station. Boomer's amazing, and Boomer has some great stats. He just did one of these stats. I don't know if anybody heard it, but if it bears repeating. The stat of how many teams in the NHL have made the playoffs for 3 straight years. And this number will surprise you because it shows.
I'm not guessing, so you could just say the answer.
No, I'll just say only 11 of teams in the NHL have made the playoffs for 3 straight years. And then how many teams in the NHL have won one round in the playoffs, which is always like the key. Like you always have to make the playoffs. For good teams, you have to at least win a round.
Well, that eliminates Toronto.
Right. Well, they're the only team that's made the playoffs the last 3 years that hasn't won a round. Toronto is. But there are no teams in the NHL that have won one round for 3 years in a row. At least one round for 3 years in a row. There's only two teams that have won two rounds. That would be San Jose and Boston. So beyond that have won one round for 2 years in a row, basically. So I'm just talking about getting to the second round. Boston and San Jose are the only teams that have done it 2 years in a row. That's nuts.
It's nuts.
I mean, that's how hard it is to predict these things. So like you were saying, Russ, like getting back to like these things. What can you do? I mean, when only San Jose and Boston win one round of the playoffs for the last 2 years, I mean that's where we are. The one thing I will say, so now let's shift gears to the second round because we're short on time today. We're going to try to get our predictions in for the games tonight.
I did want to say one more thing though, real quick about the Canes.
Yeah.
The fact that they've got Sebastian Aho back on track now after not scoring in like 12 games is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So that's something we're going forward that makes them a lot more dangerous.
I'll say it's a big deal. He reminds me so much of he's like the perfect Finn, you know what I mean? Like he is such a he is such a Finn. Like he is such a combination of like, I mean, he's not Solani, but he's got moments where he's Solani. Like,
no, but he has moments where he's that. He's got moments where he's just, the speed is like that. He's got moments where the shot reminds you of somebody else.
He's got a little Saku Koivu.
That's what I was going to say too. I think he's got a little Sammy Kapanen in him.
Yeah, he's like an amalgamation of all of them.
Of all of those like, you know, stocky, short Finns that have got a lot of speed, you know, and that can do a lot. He can do it all, and it is a rare occurrence, and he's just all of that. I mean, I remember always being amazed by him, and I remember one thing that always stuck with me was I forget who it was I was sitting with at the World Cup of Hockey when Laine and Aho were playing in the you know, for Finland, and someone told me that, you know, flat out Aho was going to be the better player in the NHL. At that point, Laine was, remember this, he had just been, you know, drafted second.
Yeah. He had all the
big deal to sit there and this guy say it, you know, he was like, but he was convinced. He's like, yeah, Aho's the better player. He's going to be, Laine's great, but Aho's going to be amazing. So it's coming a little bit to fruition. I
would never have said that, but I was always very high on the kid.
Yeah. Now, even though he lost last night, and this is the debate we can have later on, I heard a really fun debate to have is who is better right now, Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin? We've had this debate a lot lately, but, you know,
I still don't think it's debatable.
You still think it's Sid?
It's Sidney Crosby. It's really not debatable. Look at the team around Ovechkin. Look at the team around Sidney Crosby.
Okay.
Will the Penguins even make the playoffs without Sidney Crosby? No way.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm sorry, but it has to be pointed out. You know, Connor McDavid may have ascended past Sidney Crosby as the best center in the league, and that means the best forward in the league. No matter what Alex Ovechkin does, he's a winger. He's limited in terms of his effectiveness because he's a winger. Now he's an unbelievable scorer, but centers rule this league.
Yeah. They do. Yeah. All right, so let's move on now to the second round. And starting tonight, we teased this a little bit yesterday, but let's start with Columbus and Boston. The interesting thing about the Eastern Conference is you have two teams that swept, right? You've got the Islanders and you've got Columbus. Two teams that no one really said obviously no one expected Columbus to even win. No one expected the Islanders to sweep the Penguins, not even when most people had the Penguins winning that series as well. So you sit back and those two teams have been off for a very long time. And now will that be a factor in this series for Columbus and Boston? What do you think?
Well, I think early on in the series, Boston will have the advantage because they just played on Tuesday. Now they may be, they're licking their wounds after, they had some bumps and bruises from the Toronto series, and they may have the early advantage in the series because they've been playing every other day for 2 weeks, and the Blue Jackets have had off for a while. I picked the Blue Jackets in this series not because I'm being vindictive against the Bruins, but because I think the Blue Jackets' style matches better against the Bruins than the Leafs did.
Oh, it does.
Boston at times and had the ability to push the Leafs around. They didn't do it all series, but they did it when they needed to do it. They sent the message, and it was, they could play the skill game and they could play the physical game. If they try to play a physical game against Columbus, Columbus will eat their lunch.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, Columbus is going to. I don't know if they play a skill game. You say against Columbus?
No, if they play a physical, I think.
No, I totally disagree. I think they've got to play physical against Columbus. That's the only way they can.
I don't think that's a good idea, Eck.
No.
I agree with Mike. They've got, for the lack of a better term, since Carolina players like it, idiots like Dubinsky and Josh Anderson, and they could play that game very easy. They've got a coach who knows how to play that game better than anybody in the league. It is the wrong tack to take against that team. It was the right tack to take against the Leafs. It was the wrong tack to take against this team, because this team can not only match you in that, but this team has more firepower than your team on the blue line and from the forward position. Hold on. They may have the better forward in Bergeron. Nobody's going to argue that. But then after that, Columbus has a lot more firepower to score on the Bruins.
Yeah, and mark my words. They're gonna match Pierre-Luc Dubois' line against Bergeron, and Bergeron we know is more experienced, but Dubois is a big body who plays very good two-way. That line has Panarin on it, and Atkinson. Atkinson is just as snipey and dirty as Marchand. So I'm not saying it's as good a line, because I think that's the best line in hockey: Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. But they will give them a run for their money, and I think, with Krejci, a wounded Jake DeBrusk on the second line, I don't think, Bruins matched up better against the Leafs because they could outwork those third and fourth lines. They're not going to outwork a Tortorella team. Tortorella is going to whip them into a frenzy. Guys like Boone Jenner and Dubinsky are going to try to run guys like McAvoy and Torrey Krug and Grzelcyk through the end boards.
Yeah, you see, I think I'm kind of with you. I think the problem in this series for Boston is the Blue Jackets forecheck. Like, that's the bottom, and that was, if the Blue Jackets forechecked, I would say Tampa's got a better defense than Boston. I really feel like Tampa's defense is better than Boston's.
Tampa or Columbus? Who are we talking about?
No, Tampa for a second. So let's look at the Blue Jackets against Tampa, right? And the Blue Jackets forechecked. I know I did a little bit of right turn there. Sorry. The Blue Jackets forechecked Tampa out of the series. They made Tampa insane with their forecheck.
Mm-hmm.
And that defense is better at handling the forecheck, I think, than the Bruins defense is. So,
you remember you had a wounded Hedman in the lineup, so that limited Tampa Bay. I don't think any of the other than John Moore, I don't think any of the Bruins defense are injured. Although in a 7-game series they're going to have some bumps and bruises. But I actually think that Boston's defense with Hedman weakened was better than Tampa's.
It's close. I guess you're right. With Hedman weakened, that I'll give you that. That's true. But I do think that the forecheck will be the problem. I think the issue is, Tampa's problem in the series was, kind of to prove both your points a little bit. Tampa tried to play a little bit too physical and not enough skilled against Columbus, and that hurt them.
They did. And if I'm John Tortorella, I play my line straight.
Mm-hmm.
I go 1 through 4.
Yeah, that's how I do too.
They're 1 through 4. I don't do anything different. I don't.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think you worry about matchups at all.
No. Look, if somebody's hot, if Panarin's red hot, sure, throw him out there for an extra shift against maybe the third line of Boston, which is definitely more deficient than even their fourth line. I might do that. And Boston will do the same with Bergeron if somebody's having a great game, or Pasternak. But end of the day, I think the only rust that will be on Columbus will be, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes of the first period. But I think the rest helps them more because they did have a physical series. The rest definitely helps Bob. And Bob got past the hurdle. And so right now, and look, what the great thing about this whole round is, with the exception of Boston and San Jose, none of the teams and none of these trolls online can say that nobody gave these teams a chance, because nobody gave any of them a chance.
No.
So move on.
No, you're right. Boston, San Jose, like I just said, the only team that's won first round 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So none of these teams won a first round last year, obviously.
Yeah.
And here they are. So you're right. I mean, it's awesome, and for that exact.
Is it awesome? I mean, this is what Bettman wanted. He wanted total parity. We've seen total parity in the NFL as well. Total parity is good, but I don't know if total parity over time is good.
Well, somebody remarked this morning on one of the Toronto radio stations as I was coming into town was that this is not great news for the NHL in terms of ratings, for the simple fact that these are all smaller markets, or at least most of them are. You have all upsets: Crosby, Ovechkin, Matthews, Tavares. All those guys are out.
But I will tell you this, Mike. Surprisingly, 3 games ago, I think it was, the Capital Carolina game was the top game, really one of the top shows on TV. But again, that's because you've just, gotten the Carolina market back into it, and because you were going against the champs. Now the champs are out. I mean, this is going to hurt them in ratings. There's no question about it.
Yeah, Casey Zizekas is not exactly a big draw on NBC.
I mean, yeah, you're right. No, I thought about that too. I mean, this is definitely, from a Hockey Buzz perspective. Like, I am working hard on the rumor chart right now because, I mean, you're looking at the bigger fan bases that come to HockeyBuzz.com right now are out.
Yeah. I will say this: the New York market for the Islanders is
the Islanders and Boston. Those two markets
markets will still be really good,
really strong. But out west, all those markets. I mean, the Blues are a strong market too, but not, for Hockey Buzz, not as strong as some of the others that got knocked out. So I think that it's fascinating on the level of like seeing new teams do it. And the other thing that's kind of interesting about it is in the past, first rounds are where the upsets happen, and then after that, things tend to settle into really kind of more what should happen.
I don't know. This is a weird year. I can't.
Now, I mean, you got with Carolina and the Islanders, like, who's to say, So let's get on. So Columbus, what are your picks so far? How do you see this going, Mike?
Columbus in 6.
Columbus in 6. Okay, Russ.
Columbus in 6.
Columbus in 6. Oh boy, you guys make this hard on me. I don't like to agree with you.
Then don't.
No, it hurts to be right, Eck.
No, there's I think Columbus is going to win as well, but I'm going to say it's 7.
Okay.
But there is part of me. Okay, there's a big part of me, and I'll eat my words and I'll replay this 100 times. I'm sure.
What is this? An Ambrosia song? The biggest part of me?
No, it feels like Boston could roll this series, it's just purely like Columbus got the first series off their bat. They finally won a playoff series. They're coming off of a sweep. Boston is starting to get into a groove. I don't know. There's part of me that thinks Boston could roll this series.
Okay, if Boston doesn't roll, can you get a bowl of alphabets and eat them on air here so you can eat your words, please?
Sure. Now, I'm picking Columbus. I'm just saying that there's.
No, but you're going both ways. You can't waffle it.
He's hedging.
Yeah, you are hedging. You cannot do that.
No, I know. I'm hedging because my confidence is shot from the last round. Right?
Listen, this is like a game show. We'll give you a chance to go back and
go
back on your pick right now.
We'll have my final. I'm going to wait to the end of this show to decide which I'm going to go with.
Okay. If anybody should be hedging, it should be me since I went 2-6 in the first round. But
Yeah, I mean, Russ was the best. Russ was the best of anybody. All right, so
I was 3 out of 5. It's bad.
And then after that, let's go to now. So here's the other thing. One last thing I want to say about the series. They have played each other. They played each other 3 times this year, and I know we can sit back and say it doesn't matter because it's regular season and all that. But I always like to look at it, especially since they played 3 times since March 12th. Like they played 3 times at the end of the year, which is really strange. They played 3 totally different games against each other, which is the strangest thing. So the first game, Columbus won 7-4. That was in Columbus. That's crazy. The second game was in Boston, and Boston won in overtime 2-1. And then the third game was just April 2nd. So we're talking about not very long ago at all. Boston won 6-2. All right, so you're looking at Boston won 2 of the 3. But there was an overtime game in there, so it's pretty much a swap. But Boston beat Columbus in Columbus 6-2 on April 2nd in a game that Columbus really needed to win, like where Columbus was trying to make the playoffs, and Boston really didn't matter. So that's an interesting thing that recently So they've gotten to Bobrovsky, basically. They got to Bobrovsky recently. So will Bob be able to turn that around? Just over the last couple of years, Boston has dominated Columbus. This year, was closer, but beyond.
I think they've gotten over a mental hurdle that's big. They do have a coach that does know how to coach and pressure games, and I think now the pressure is off even on him to some degree. And so I think you'll see them coaching this a different way and playing a different way.
Yeah, the Bruins have scored 40 goals in the last 9 games against the Blue Jackets.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's more than 4 a game. All right, so let's move on then to the other game tonight, which would be Dallas and St. Louis. Like good old fashioned, I like to think of it like the Minnesota Blues versus the Minnesota North Stars versus the St. Louis Blues, a good old Norris Division battle here. Dallas and St. Louis. They had some good. St. Louis and Minnesota.
Bobby Smith versus Bernie Federico.
They just have some real awesome.
The Dallas Stars are way more successful than the North Stars ever were. But anyhow,
that's true. That's true. At least they won a cup. North Stars got there once.
They did.
All right. So on this series, Russ, why don't you start this one?
All right. So this is an interesting one because I really have admired what Dallas has done. I like the fact that Esa Lindell, who, by the way, if people read my rankings back in the day, I said the New York Rangers should get Esa Lindell. They didn't. They went and got Boo Nieves like 6 or 7 picks ahead of them. If they had Esa Lindell now, they'd be a lot better off. He's a hell of a player. But also, it's nice to see Dickinson. And like we talked about, guys from the Calder winning team really sort of help the other pros that they already had there. We haven't even heard of Jason Spezza, really. Spezza has been a non-factor. I haven't even noticed him. Is he injured? I don't even notice him.
Is Valerie Nikushkin even in Dallas?
But I will say that, and Bishop's been great. I like Ben Bishop. I've covered him since college. I am a fan, but the problem is he does get hurt. Now he's healthy, and we could all see when he's healthy. Nobody ever argues that he's not a great goalie when he's healthy because we know. Although one time, I don't know if I ever told you this, when he was in Philly and he was injured, I told him that he got jobbed out of the Olympic job, and he actually thanked me at the time.
Really?
But I said, you did. You should have been.
He absolutely did. You're right.
Yeah. And so he thanked me for that. But it's just, so I respect him. I am going to pick against him simply because everything's rolling right for St. Louis. They've got Jaden Schwartz healthy. He's playing great. Robbie Fabry's healthy. He's playing really well. He's starting to pick it up a bit. Bouwmeester, I don't know. I guess that whatever injury that he was, or not injured, whatever he was recovering from the last year, the surgery really affected him to the point where we were just killing him the first half. And for the last quarter of the season, he was really good. He's been really good. Parayko, everybody else has been really good. Tarasenko, Binnington, obviously. So I'll take St. Louis in 7.
Okay, St. Louis in 7. Mike?
I basically, I look at St. Louis, and it's nothing against Dallas because I think, I was surprised that Dallas beat Nashville and they played the type of game that you needed to against Nashville. I just look at St. Louis and the way that they, beat a team that I thought was the team that was going to come out of the West in Winnipeg, and they were, in Game 6 they were suffocating against the Jets, and they got some breaks, but they also are a really good deep team, and this does not look like the team that that played in the first half of the season. A guy like Tyler Bozak, who they added as a third-line center, has fit perfectly in there. He's got some playoff experience. Yeah. And Ryan O'Reilly has had just an amazing year. And you add those guys to Shen and Parayko and Pietrangelo. It's like, they are the team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year, but only took them the first half to sort of get with it. And I think they're the better of the two teams. So I'm going St. Louis in 6.
One more small point that I forgot to mention, and this really makes, to me, Ken Hitchcock look bad. How good's Ivan Barbashev look going out there banging guys on the fourth line? And he couldn't even get in there with Hitchcock. I know. He was like barely putting him in there. And I've noticed Barbashev has looked really good.
He's looked very good. And that is kind of the interesting thing of the combination. These teams have both been coached by Ken Hitchcock. It's kind of interesting. Yep. And I think of in recent times, so that it's just kind of bizarre. The Blues feel like, it does feel to me like when I look at this series, first of all, the season series of these two teams is interesting because of all, I don't know if you remember when we were talking about who wanted to play who in this, St. Louis did not want to play Dallas. And that was because, Dallas has the last 2 games, February 21st, March 2nd, For Dallas 5-2, Dallas 4-1. St. Louis won on January 12th, and January 8th, Dallas won 3 of the 4 this year. So, and they kept the Blues the scoring down. Like the Blues had like 1 goal, 4 goals, 6, 7 goals in 4 games. So they really, and where meanwhile Dallas put up 9, 10, 13 goals in 4 games. So Dallas was the one team that had versus Nashville versus Winnipeg actually had the Blues number this year, for what it's worth. And those goals, those last 2 games were definitely against Bennington. I looked that up too, so that's interesting. So yeah, I think that this, that's just the season series. But when I actually go through it in my head, I can't help but think that the Blues just are on. The Blues feel like the destiny team to me here. Like they just feel like, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that this team has had so many years of horrors in the playoffs because of their goaltending, and having a great goalie has made the Blues just a happy bunch of players.
Really, I mean, it's made all the difference.
And we saw it in Philly when Carter Hart first came here too. That it just changes things. It changes everything, and the Blues there were better Blues teams that were in the playoffs, than this Blues team. But this Blues team just has talent-wise. But this Blues team just has something because they have the confidence that they're not going to get beaten by themselves. They're not going to get beaten by their own goalie, which is something that like the Maple Leafs didn't have in Game 7. So I'm just throwing it out there quickly. But sorry, Mike. But yeah, to me, I think the Blues. I think this is a hell of a series. I think these teams are going to beat the hell out of each other. I think this is going 7 games completely. But I think St. Louis will find a way in Game 7 in the 3rd overtime. Like that's the kind of series.
He's hedging again.
I'm gonna throw my crazy wacky prediction about this series is they will play 9 games, and when you include the overtimes.
All right, whatever. That's fine. I do want to mention Scott Murdoch. Said, "Hey,
Thanks,
what about Heiskanen?" And
just trying to have some fun, Russ.
I know.
Hey, whatever. That's fine.
And Heiskanen has looked great. Like he really has been everything that I had him in my Calder race all year. I talked about him a lot, so I am happy for him. Yes, Cale Makar has looked great. He also wanted to say that. Yes, he has. But we didn't expect anything else out of Cale Makar.
Yeah.
Lord said that I betrayed Matt Zuccarello by picking against him. He's such a troll. It's like I love Zuccarello. He's one of the great guys in the league. Stop trolling, man.
Yeah. No, I think.
Well, it's a battle of the ex-Leafs. Tyler Bozak versus Roman Polak.
Yes.
Listen, at this point, Mike, everybody's an ex-Leaf because the real Leafs aren't good enough.
Oh yeah, well this is there's plenty of ex players on. Both these teams have really been built like through a lot of trades and through a lot of different situations. And Tarasenko is going to have to be great. Like he's going to have to be better. I think
he'll be great. I don't have any doubts.
I'm such a big fan of Jaden Schwartz. He got the whole that's huge. Braden Shen has the ability to do good things in the playoffs.
Braden Shen's been hot and cold. He still has good hands. He's not a fantastic player all the time, but he has his moments.
Well, he has had some playoffs where Braden Shen, has done pretty well. Like he has a tendency to score big goals at big times. But you're right about him. He's actually, when you look at the first round of of who were the best players in the NHL in the first round of the playoffs, Heiskanen was up there.
Yeah.
Like he was definitely.
We need to talk about that Leafs press conference because the whole world saw it because the NHL Network put it on. And
we got that now. Mike's been dry. So my pick is St. Louis in 9, and yours and Mike, you have St. Louis in this series too.
Yes, in 6.
And 6, and Russ, you're going with
St. Louis in 7.
Wow. So man, I'll have my other pick in the Columbus thing in a second. All right, Mike, tell us about Mike. You're up in Toronto today. You went up there. Must have been a fun time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
it was lockout day. Nothing like locker clean out day for a good time.
It was really uplifting. I took a picture of something outside of the arena that said "Leafs Forever," and I says, "Well, after talking to some of the Leaf players in the locker room, they won't be here forever because there's going to be some changes. I don't know how many.
Yeah,
I would definitely be an advocate of them trading William Nylander." there was a lot of, happy talk about, well, he had a bad year because of the holdout, and I want to show the player that I really am. I have a sneaking suspicion we've seen the player that he really is. I think he's a 60 to 65 point guy, and I think he's got value now. And if they hold on to him, hoping that he turns it around in a second year, I don't think they're going to get much more than they would get in a trade right now, and they really need to address their defense. Kyle Dubas really didn't back down. Really, honestly, I thought the weirdest part, and I talked it over with a couple of fellow reporters. When Dubas was asked, can you guarantee, basically I'm paraphrasing, can you guarantee that Babcock and Nazem Kadri will be back next year? And he says, well, nothing is certain. And he talked about himself and how Brendan Shanahan will review, his job, and then that would go according to. He didn't answer the question. It's like, okay, it's very simple. Either you say that Babcock's going to be back, or you're not. And I'm not saying.
I will say this, Mike, and then you can continue.
Right.
I want to comment on the Nylander and Kadri. I got the impression from that press conference that Nylander's staying because the GM likes him. It has and the coach does like him too, but the GM is the one that likes him, and that's why he took the bullet for saying he screwed up Nylander for waiting too long on the negotiations, which is something that we brought up on the show, like what the hell was going on with the negotiations. But the other thing is, I think Kadri's gone because the one thing Dubas said to me that made me think he looks at him, and again, for me to think like Kyle Dubas, I have to think like an accountant. And so he's looking at Kadri like a diminishing asset simply because his next hit will put him out for even more games. And he talked about that. He said for the last 2 years, first suspension was 3 games. Next suspension's 5 games. What's the next one going to be? And even Babcock, who didn't want to badmouth anybody, and I thought he was very disingenuous, Mike Babcock, he put on a puppet show. It was awful. It was awful. But I will tell you this. Babcock not only didn't back Kadri, but he basically acted like, you know what? Yeah, I got a problem with the way he did it, even though he was sticking up for his teammates. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think there'll be some recriminations continuing throughout the summer until they make some decision. I'm not so sure because honestly, the center depth of the Leafs organization after Tavares and Marner is practically non-existent. Freddie Gauthier is not an NHLer, and I was at the Marlies game last night, and they don't have many center prospects. So unless you unless you're trading Kadri for another center,
right?
And this is the other thing. You're talking about a team that right now is going to be in salary cap struggle during the summer, and after being in the scrum with Patrick Marleau is not retiring. At least he said I want to come back, I want to do this, I want to do that.
He wasn't retiring.
Russ, based on he's got a no move clause, so honestly, if he does, if he
do anything with him,
right, if he wants to stay. He probably would only waive his no-move clause for one place, San Jose, and I don't think San Jose is going to want him. So
no-move clause to go back to San Jose.
Right, but other than that, I don't think he's going anywhere. And I don't think they're going to force him because who are his 2 closest teammates? Matthews and Marner. They're like his sons. He's like sort of adopted them and taken them under his wings. So they're not going to push Patrick Marleau out the door. And if that's the case, then you have to get rid of either Nylander or a combination of Connor Brown and Nazem Kadri to clear space to re-sign Marner and to be able to make other moves. And honestly, I think you get more because they have to get a defenseman one way or the other. You get more if you're trading Nylander. You're not getting
that, Mike. They're actually this time they're looking at Kadri like, you know what? We can't be in this position again. He screwed us this year. Every year we're telling him to calm down, and every year anything happens. I think
Kadri did them such a favor. It's unbelievable. I mean, it really.
I think they're tired of his act. That's
you did them a favor because they were being put in a position like the big thing I've heard is Matthews doesn't want Nylander gone, right? And that's like that's a big issue with when you have your star player. But the other thing that Shanahan and Babcock and this whole group have shown from the beginning is they went as far away from Brian Burke as they could. And that they will do whatever people think they should do. And Kadri is going to be moved because it makes sense because it's not crazy to move Kadri. It's not going to be controversial to move Kadri. If it doesn't work out, they can say, well, of course we had to move him. And it makes me crazy that they don't take chances. This team, ever. And that they just that, like you said, Babcock's press conferences are, oh, God, just horrible.
It's gotten really bad. I mean, he wouldn't take responsibility for anything. The GM took responsibility, which is what GM should do. But the coach has got to take some responsibility.
How is that? Babcock versus Dubas. Dubas is this young kid who handles himself so much better than Babcock, who is like, Babcock is just so believes his own press clippings at this point.
Babcock, like sort of like he says, well, there are 23 coaches out there right now that are in the same, or 22 coaches that are in the same position that I am, meaning they're not in the playoffs. And it's like,
no,
okay, but none of them are being paid $6.5 million to friggin' win.
You're right. I mean, that's why I'm sorry to jump on you, but that's exactly right. There aren't 22 other coaches.
You know what this smacks of? I'll tell you what this smacks of, Eck. Honestly, if Kyle Dubas were to pick a coach, he wouldn't have picked Mike Babcock. He inherited Mike Babcock. And Mike Babcock is a Lou kind of guy. Lou picked him, and now he stayed behind, and he doesn't – well, I mean
Lou didn't know. Lou was not there. It was Shanahan that picked him.
So Shanahan picked him.
Shanahan, but it was what everybody wanted them to do.
Right.
What the fans wanted them to do. The fans wanted them to tank to get to before they wanted them to get, they wanted him to get Anderson. They've always done what they want them to do.
I will say this though, and Mike, you could tell me what you thought the feeling was. My feeling was after this press conference that the Leafs were like, hey, we appreciate the media and the fans, but we don't really care what you think because we're going to go back in our little bubble here and we're going to make decisions that we think are right, and it doesn't matter what you think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, please. I think that the comments of Morgan Riley after Game 7 and even today and the comments of Dubas about Jake Gardiner was basically, we don't care what you think.
Right.
We like Jake Gardiner, and we think he's been a good player. Now, Jake Gardiner's not going to come back because they can't pay him, but they're basically saying we don't care what that the fans are excoriating Jake Gardiner for being -10 in three Game 7s. I'm sorry, when you're -10 in 3 Game 7s, you suck.
But it did seem like Kyle Dubas is only signing Jake Gardiner if he's got loose change in the couch cushions.
Oh,
he's
no,
not out of his way.
I believe what they're going to do is, I mean, Ron, and this was the complete 180-degree antithesis of Patrick Marleau, who was like, no, I want to come back. He was very forthcoming about what his outlook is for the next season. Ron Hainsey, when asked whether he's going to retire, he basically says, well, I haven't decided, and even if I had, I'm not going to tell you. Yeah. Meaning to the media. Yeah. So it's like, okay, that was very friendly, Ron. But honestly, it's like I think there's going to be changes, but they're going to have to. I mean, like this KHL forward that they're rumored to be in on, he's going to be on an entry-level contract. That's perfect for them. They're going to look for cheap, short-term ways of, because next year will be a cap crunch if Marleau stays, and then the following year they'll have some loosening up of the coffers. So. But it's going to be tough with Marner probably getting at least $10 million. And the one encouraging thing for Leaf fans out there was Marner made it clear he wants to be in Toronto. He wants to be in Toronto long term. Dubas admitted that it was a mistake to wait a little time on Nylander. He's going to get on it probably tomorrow. They will get this done before July 1st because the Leafs know they have to pay him.
No, they will. That I have no question, no issue that will get done. The thing that scares me, if I'm a Leafs fan, is the importance that they've placed on Ron Hainsey at the age of whatever he is, 36. And if Mike Babcock's the coach again, they might sign him again and might play him in the same role at that age, which is crazy.
Well, he's 38.
38, yeah.
Babcock will be the coach, and I will be surprised if Hainsey is re-signed, because like I said yesterday, the only way, and supposedly Dubas and Babcock talked today, I would not be surprised if Shanahan was part of the discussion. And this is the problem that happened this year. The only way Dubas can manage the roster is by denial. The only way that he can get Mike Babcock to not play Ron Hainsey 25 minutes a night is to not have Ron Hainsey on the roster.
Yeah, that is. You know what?
I still think they might sign Hainsey, Mike. I think you're still underestimating the power and the nagging of Babcock, because when Babcock talked about being in the meetings as far as for rosters, he is going to be nagging, and he is going to try and bring Hainsey back. and
Yeah.
is going to just put him back at a low price. That's all he's going to do.
Well, Russ, I'm not doubting that, but do the Leafs have Luke Glendening on their roster? No. Do they have big sandpaper guys? No. Why? Because Kyle Dubas doesn't believe in those players.
Yeah. No, but they signed Pekanek because of him. They're still going to make.
No, they he was a deadline, and that was Lou.
Still, my point is, for as long as Babcock is going to be there, and he's still going to be there next year, they still will make some moves to placate him. Otherwise, again, you pick up a guy and he won't use him. Like you might sign a guy and he's not like Nick Patan. You sign the wrong guy.
Right.
Babcock uses him for 2 weeks and says he doesn't fit in my system.
Yeah, totally agree. And Hainsey, I mean, this is my son who is not a hockey fan, not an athlete, not like he's a puppet guy. He does all kinds of great creative things. Love him to death. He's the greatest guy in the world. So we're watching the games on, the Maple Leafs Bruins game 7's on, and he says, "Man, that number 2 on the white team really is slow."
He was once fast, though. I want to say,
I know he is, but he was, and I like Hainsey. Hainsey's a great guy.
He's a great guy. He's a great interview.
But this is the problem, man. I'll say this, and then I have to sign off.
Yeah.
This is the problem. If they could bring back Ron Hainsey at a lower salary, which I think he probably would be amenable to, for 1 year, they would do it. But the problem is, I think Kyle Dubas would do it if he could get Babcock to say, I want him playing on the bottom pairing with Travis Dermott and have him be the teacher that he was to Morgan Riley, which helped Morgan Riley to become the player that he is. The problem is that Babcock will say, sure, yeah, and then he'll play him 25 minutes a night with Riley.
Right.
He falls back on the guys who he's comfortable with, and the only way to prevent him from doing that is to deny those players from him.
I have a bold prediction for Toronto before you leave, Mike. That if Hainsey, and this ties into my final thought here, I'm going to go. But if I'm hearing very clearly that Mark Hunter is going to be the next general manager in Edmonton. If that happens, I think there's every bit possible that Hainsey gets moved into a front office position. Hainsey is that smart. He will be a GM someday in the NHL, and they like him. I think Hainsey could take over what Mark Hunter is doing right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Take care, Mike. So
the
end here is I have a really good source who tells me that today some of the Edmonton coaches who didn't get, he interviewed like 13 guys out there on Nicholson.
13 guys.
So it's not hard to find a source who can tell you that
right.
that they were called today and told they don't have the job, which means that somebody was told they did have the job. And I think my prediction would be tomorrow or the next day we'll hear that Mark Hunter is the new general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. And we'll hear that DJ Smith is the new coach.
I don't know what to say about the Oilers. The last thing I do want to sort of say about the Leafs is the press conference was weird simply because Babcock was very evasive. He was very hey, 3 years ago, we weren't expected to make it. We shouldn't have made it, but we did. Last year, like the way he framed it was almost like all of this is okay. This is a normal progression, but it's not because they're stuck in the mud and their defense is getting worse.
Yeah.
So it's really not. Now, there's a lot of pressure on Kyle Dubas to literally pull them out of this in this offseason because of the moves they made last season. It's not going to be easy. I mean, he did get Jake Muzzin there. That was a hell of a trade.
Great trade, and it was something reasonable that they could handle. I mean,
you can't make it like that all the time.
Marner can sit there and say he wants to be a Maple Leaf, but they're going to have to pay him a ton to do that because someone will.
It's going to be $10.5 million a year.
Yeah, someone will pay him that if they don't. So it's the bottom line is, and Marner, wasn't that great in this playoffs for sure. He definitely looked out of it at times, I thought, but he's a great player. I don't know where to put Marner in terms of, he's definitely some people say he's as good as Austin Matthews. He's just not as good as Austin Matthews.
No, he's not, but he's close. I mean, he's close.
He's competitive. He's up there for sure.
I think it's like trying to figure out, I don't know, who's better, like Mike Gartner and Teemu Salami. Like they're both great in different ways.
Yeah, they're very different. I agree. So DJ Smith, DJ Smith will be Edmonton's new coach, I was told. That seems like that's a given now. The person I talked to said put an E5 on it. That's a big thing for me, as you guys know. So I didn't do that yet, because that means that it's done, and that that's not a rumor to me. So I only have it from one source, so I can't say. But this is a very good source who is very close to the situation. I was also told that McCrimmon does not want the Edmonton job, and therefore that he basically bowed out of it, and that he also does not want the Seattle job, which is interesting, because I kind of thought McCrimmon would end up in Seattle.
I told you, he probably has his eye on a dream job.
Yes.
And in a good spot, and so why give that up? Somebody did ask in the chat room, who's going to win this battle, Mike Babcock or Kyle Dubas? It's very easy. Kyle Dubas will win the battle. It's not even close.
Yeah, no, he will, because really it logically ends up working that way also. It's not even a matter of like who has more power, because maybe you could argue that Babcock might have more power, actually, because they gave him so much money and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, there's no logical way that Babcock can win that battle.
No, and he's not going to. And I think Dubas is doing a good job. And I think he actually came off really good in that press conference, and Babcock came off really bad. And I think just what frustrated Leaf fans is they still don't know why Mike Babcock didn't play Austin Matthews a lot of minutes in the final game. He wouldn't answer it. There were things he wouldn't answer, and actually at the end of the season like that, that's when you should answer that.
That's when you should answer that.
And it's a very easy answer. I mean, he could just say, because that's what I do. And then people could rip him for that, but at least it would be an answer. He didn't even give an answer.
Yeah. And I'll give Dubas credit. I mean, of all the interesting, you never hear anything interesting coming out of Shanahan. You never hear anything interesting coming out of Babcock. At least Dubas, will come out and say, we're going to actually sign something. We're going to actually, we're like last year he came out and said we're definitely going to sign Nylander, Marner. Dubas will put himself on the line once in a while.
He did with this too. You know what Dubas said? The one thing that made my ears perk up was he did what a good GM does. Because he's out of the playoffs now. He talked about the draft. He said, we've had these high draft picks, and you have to kill it on those. And I've always told the staff, and he never talked about what he ever tells the staff. I always told the staff, you pick high, you have to kill that. It's obvious. But when you're picking lower in the first round, or even just in the second round because you've traded a pick, then you got to try and make some hay. And so that's, so that was something where I was like, all right, they did reveal a little strategy. And then he did say, hey, the Marlies are still playing and those prospects are still important. So it did give Leaf fans an idea that a couple of those guys have a real chance of making the team next year, which they have to if they're going to pay Marner, right? So they're going to have to advance some players.
Yeah, they're going to have to. Before we get out of here, some people in the chat room asking
Make your pick.
Oh, I will. I'm not there yet. We're not at the end. Who is DJ Smith? Someone asked in the chat room, and it's an interesting question because you might not know who DJ Smith is, because he's not a common name. But
right.
The funny thing, so I went on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is hilarious. So, because this is how it leads off with Smith. Smith played in the 1991 Quebec International Pee Wee Hockey Tournament.
Wow.
With a minor ice hockey team from Windsor, Ontario. He later played 45 games in the NHL. Like, what's more?
Wow, so that was more important than.
Yeah, there's more important than I mean, a lot of it. That's an incredible tournament. I know that's an unbelievable tournament, but it's not like he did. It's not like he was like the all-star of that tournament. He won that tournament. He was like, there's nothing. He just played in it.
You know what it is? It's an open source thing, right? So it's the writer's fault, whoever wrote that,
yeah,
and the writer must be from Quebec or someplace like that.
Right,
who put
Windsor.
more importance on that than the NHL.
Right. Probably Windsor, I would bet, because it's like the International Pee Wee Hockey Tournament with a minor ice hockey team from Windsor.
Oh, that's somebody from Windsor. Yeah.
That's somebody from Windsor. It's probably Mark Spazzeri, who used to write for us. He later played 45 games in the NHL with the Maple Leafs, Avalanche, and the Islanders. He retired from playing hockey after numerous concussions. He went on to coaching, in coaching, as Smith coached the Oshawa Generals, where he won a Memorial Cup in 2015. Coach of the year in 13, 14, and 15. And he's an assistant coach currently with the Maple Leafs. The other thing interesting about DJ Smith is he was Lou Lamoriello's first pick for the Islanders. And the interesting thing about that is this is before Trotz became available. And the concept was, he was going to bring in DJ Smith, and the Maple Leafs would not let DJ Smith talk to the Islanders. That was what was, and that is rare in the NHL that that a team will not allow their assistant to talk about a possible head coaching job.
Yeah.
They kept him back, and I think they even kept him back on another team too. Mike said the other day. However, this situation, Mark Hunter, who has connections to the Maple Leafs, he's not with the Maple Leafs anymore. Right? That's true, right? Mark Hunter's not with the Maple Leafs.
No, he's not.
He's in London. But the reason I bring up the Maple Leafs thing ending before, what was confusing, was because I was tying in DJ Smith, who Edmonton wouldn't be able to announce until this was over. Mark Hunter, they might allow to take DJ Smith. Is this like some kind of like way of saying, okay, or is this just the way of saying, okay, you're going to Edmonton, you're going to the Western Conference? Why would they let DJ Smith go now, especially with Babcock faltering a little bit?
Well, you know what? It may have been MLS&E saying, as a corporation, Lou, you're not going to pilfer guys that we had here.
Yeah.
And with Edmonton, it's not like that, right? Because Lou isn't there. I think it just has to do with that. Now, Dubas did say something funny about Lou, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. He did say, somebody asked about the World Championship, so he answered the question and said, we've been getting contacted by a lot of these different countries. He goes, I should actually say the players have been getting contacted, and this is something that wouldn't have gone over well when Lou was here.
Yeah.
Now that seems to be the way.
You think so? Oh man, you've been around for that too. We've talked about this before in the press box. When you get guys, I forget who it was, but they was scouting for the Olympics, and they were coming through, and they're talking to the players, and the Flyers would give them seats in the press box. Like guys from Finland or Sweden or whatever, and then suddenly they're talking to, and the Flyers were pissed off about it. It really is bold. The World Championships are going to be interesting. I mean, they tried very hard last year to get Austin Matthews to go, and he didn't.
Yeah.
I wonder if he goes this year.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to try, and I think this year he might. I think this year he should.
He should. Why not? He should. He absolutely should. I think, and last year what was interesting is they got Patrick Kane to go.
Yeah.
And that was actually another kind of weird tie into all this thing. Bill Zito was the GM of that USA team that got Patrick Kane to go. And that team that won a silver medal, and no one expected them to win a silver medal.
Right.
And that they beat Canada in the opening game of the World Championships last year. So,
look, if John Tortorella didn't get the job of the head coach for the U.S. in, what was it? Was it the World Championships, or was it he probably wouldn't have gotten another coaching job because he had a huge bad reputation. They fixed his reputation there. They did.
Right. Oh, they definitely did. The other thing, am I mistaken that Vigneault is the coach? Is he still the coach of the Canadian team in the World Championships?
Yeah, Vigneault is the coach.
He's still coaching, even though he's because he
hold on, I'm going to tell you the whole coaching staff, since you're not maybe aware. So Vigneault is the coach.
Right.
Tim Dillabaugh will be the goaltending coach.
Okay.
Ron Hextall is a GM. Dave Haxtell is one of the assistants.
Wow. Okay. So that's crazy.
And Vigneault said he will not talk about former players with those guys. That's what he said.
Okay.
What he said.
That's crazy. So
it is crazy.
So you got like the Flyers past and present.
Yeah.
Future all in that situation.
Yeah, because Carter Hart's on the team already. Couturier's on the team.
Right.
They asked Giroux. Giroux didn't answer yet. So, yeah.
I wonder if he goes. He probably will.
I don't know. He just had a kid, right? Someone said.
That's true. He did just have a kid. Yeah, maybe he won't. But
he might not this
year. Yeah, and he actually is a little. I think is still a little pissed off at Canada for the Olympics a couple years ago. So he might not. But Couturier will be.
Vigneault did try and smooth it over with him.
So that starts pretty soon, right?
10th.
When does it start?
May 10th, I think.
Okay, that's a little bit further. That's later than usual, isn't it?
I mean, it's in May. Let's see. Hold on. I'll double check.
It's usually the second round. I mean, teams that get eliminated from the second round, those guys are leaving. They're leaving to go to join the World Championships already in progress. It feels like.
Yeah, that's true.
But the second round will be over before May 10th.
Oh no! You know what? I saw May 10th on something else, but I don't think that's right. You're right. Oh, look, Kovalchuk's on the Russian team.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, it is May 10th through May 26th.
There you go. Okay, well, maybe that's – okay. There you go. All right. So we do have to get out of here, but I will make
one more thing?
Yes.
One last thing, and then you have to make the pick because you were just going to try and weasel out of it.
I know.
All right. There are some – last couple of years in the World Championships, there's been a reason to watch, and that's because – there's been more players breaking into the NHL from there, and even some prospects that have had chances to play there, then all of a sudden their team elevates them. Philip Kurashev's going to play for Switzerland. He's a kid that the Blackhawks took. He's very talented, but he had a real weird minor hockey career where he bounced around.
Okay.
Watch that kid. He could play.
Oh, wow. That'd be fun. I enjoy the World Championships. I really do. And
I mean, I watch some of it. I do.
I've been told that it's an incredibly fun thing to cover. Like one of the years would like to cover it.
I do want to cover it too. All right, make your pick.
All right, my pick. Boston in 6.
Okay.
There you go. That's it, I guess.
No, that's fine. You're allowed to do it. There was no reason you couldn't go back on it.
I don't know. I really, it's like, I have no real inkling. And I said, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Boston in 6, St. Louis in 9. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk about the other two series for sure. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Have a nice night. Enjoy the games.